Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for taking the time to join us for the Zeald webinar series, Keep Calm and Get Digital. My name is Rhonda and I will be your moderator for today's webinar. Last weekend, I attended my first wedding since COVID. It helped me to feel like things were mostly returned to normal. However, you only had to notice the QR code for registering your attendance, the lower numbers than planned, and the Zoom event links around to realize there is a new normal. Doing business today in today's business environment means you have to change and adapt. We have been delivering informative webinars with a lot of valuable information to support businesses to adapt and change to the new way of doing business. Today, our webinar is on how to increase average order value, upsells, and customer lifetime value. I'm just going to share my screen. Today, our webinar expert is Titus. Titus is one of those rare people that has skills in many different areas. He has advanced technical skills as well as advanced marketing skills. Titus has helped a lot of businesses achieve online results using both technical and creative solutions, and he will be our expert presenting today's webinar. Just some housekeeping for you. If you are having trouble hearing, just to try these settings down at the bottom left-hand side. If you have a question, you can raise your hand here or put a question in the Q&A section here. And then we can ask Titus the questions as we're going through the session. We will have a Q&A section at the end if you want to reserve your questions for then. Feel free to pop them through there as well. I'm just going to hand over to Titus. Hi, Titus.
Hello, Rhonda. Thank you very much
Stop
for the
my share.
introductions. Thank you very much. All right, let's just jump into it. I think you've said enough about me with all those fancy introductions, so thank you. Just checking, did I share the right screen there, Rhonda?
Yes, yep, got it.
Yep, okay, perfect. All right, brilliant. So today we're going to be covering off a very important aspect of e-commerce, which often gets overlooked because it is actually very valuable and often high return on investment activity to do with any e-commerce business, and that is how to increase your average order value, and ultimately this relates to upsells and customer lifetime value too. So heading into it, we've got a whole load of topics today, which I'm kind of be zooming through because we've only got a small time slot to do this in, but I'm just going to give you a bit of an overview of all these activities, some of which you can just really easily start doing today. So without further ado, why is average order value so important? The key thing to realize with average order value is, let's just talk about what it is first, is average order value is actually really easy to work out from your site. Often with a lot of platforms, you'll have the average order value worked out for you on the dashboard, but it's very easy to work out, which is the total revenue on the site divided by the total number of orders you've taken over a specific time period. And the reason it's so important is because it's one of the many levers that you can pull as in marketing, which really can increase the bottom line. For every extra dollar you get in revenue, obviously you've got the cost of goods for an e-commerce site, but it is a far better use of that, far better return on that additional dollar than the rest of the money you've gained from it, purely because you don't have to spend any more to retain that customer who you otherwise would have already got. So obviously, if your average order value is $50, it's way better than if your average order is 40. But there's a lot of, it's not simply a case of you getting more revenue. It is, in terms of the way the bottom line works, it's far more valuable to get that extra $10 than it perhaps would have been to get the $10 before that, if that makes any sense. Now, it's also one that involves actually increasing your average order value. There's so many things you can do about this, which most people ignore, but it's one of those things which you can implement on your website. Some of them are pretty easy to do, and it's actually quite easy to work out if it will improve your average order value, ultimately your bottom line. So rather than spending loads with AdWords or any different paid advertising mediums, these can produce returns for your existing traffic base. So let's look at one of the first things we can do. We've got upsells and cross-sells. Cross-sells and upsells are very, very similar, although somewhat different. Basically, cross-sell is something that you would be recommending to someone who is interested in a certain product on your site, which is kind of related to that, which would help. So the example here is, they buy a pair of jeans. You might recommend the perfect top for that, or vice versa. And an upsell is slightly different in the way that you typically might later on try to sell people on a more premium version of a product or a service that you're offering. So, they've already bought in for the $10 product. Why not add this extra flashy widget to it for an extra $3? So these are very kind of similar things, kind of not. All platforms, Shopify, WooCommerce, Zest, have the ability to add in upsells and cross-sells, whether it's on the product page or the cart page, and those things kind of flag to people that, hang on a sec, you can add this to your cart as you go. Now, there's actually a lot better ways of implementing upsells and cross-sells. This is just kind of one of the simplest things you might think of in terms of implementing it. There are clever things you can do, and it's all about positioning products that are actually really relevant, rather than just relying on the system to define, okay, well, these are the related products, these are the products in the same category. I'm just going to throw these in front of the customer and hope one of them sticks and they might buy it. Rather than doing that, you should try and hand select products that really complement what you're trying to offer. An easy example, which is applicable to most businesses, especially ones selling products, is something like this, where this is my first expert tip of the day, which you can actually go ahead and do pretty much straight away on most platforms without any development, is you can upsell a warranty or a protection plan, whatever you want to call it. But you sell any physical product, it's typical, you've got an agreement with them where you typically will be serving them a warranty anyway. Why not upgrade it to 2 or 3 years? You will no doubt have experienced this whenever you go to any sort of computer store, and lots of other stores here in between. But this example here is one from Amazon, where different marketplace providers can provide these add-ons. Very simple to do. You can do the same thing in your cart or checkout simply by potentially just adding it in the shipping options, even, or as an add-on product later on as a link. There are more advanced ways of doing this, but that can be done without any development on pretty much every e-commerce site. It's a nice thing to do because you can upsell one of these things, whether it's $10 or $50 for an extra year or two for a warranty or protection plan. Most people actually don't claim on these things, even if their device does break. So it's effectively free money. You will obviously have to keep to your word if you're going to offer them warranties and whatnots and terms and conditions, but that's all sort of pure profit on the top, which you get now, and you may have a small payout later. But there's a reason why all the big players do this and offer this. It's because they make a lot more money off of these protection plans. So easy thing to do. Now, next example is the post-purchase upsell. I've already referred a couple of times to there are being better ways of adding upsells and cross-sells. So if you're familiar with it, you probably would have seen in, for example, in WooCommerce, you can add upsells and cross-sells in the options there. All it does is just adds a link with an image to that product page from the cart or the product page. But it is a little interruptive. What we find works a lot better is something that will give people an upsell after they make the purchase. And the reason why this is important is that if you're interrupting people during the purchase decision, the critical path to making that purchase along the marketing funnel, then it's a distraction. You actually want as few distractions as possible for people to complete a checkout and a purchase as possible, because there's just so many numbers to prove that the quicker and more efficient you make that with the least amount of distractions, the higher conversion rate. So why am I promote upsells? Because you don't have to tell people to buy an upsell before they check out. You can actually do a post-purchase upsell. So some people may have experienced this on some websites. There's not actually that many that seem to offer it, and it's surprising that more don't. But the way this works is, if you can imagine you're buying something, like for example here we've got supplements. You're on a health store or supplement store. You may have bought your protein shake or vitamins or whatever, and then, despite having no distractions, you've completed the payment, you've completed putting your credit card details, and on the order confirmation page, you'll then be presented with an offer a little bit like this. This is a bit more of an advanced option, but it says, hey, you've just bought one of these. Why not buy a load more or buy this related product with a click of a button? Now, that's the key difference here. It's not asking them to go through and check out again and add the credit card details again. We're asking them to just click one button, and all the credit card details are already still stored, and it can just top up that order. So if they placed a $50 order, you can top it up with whatever this is, either buying 2 units of the same item or buying a cross-sell product, just with a single click of a button. And it is amazing, especially if you give them a little discount. It is amazing the actual amount of people who will convert. Typically, you'll find that on these upsell pages, especially if you give them a bit of a discount, and even if you give them the same product, just buy more of it, for a site like this, you typically will find a 30 to 60% acceptance rate of purchasing these upsells post-purchase. Now, these don't come as standard on any website platform that I know of, but there are really advanced options for these, particularly on WooCommerce and Shopify. So I'd highly recommend going down this path if you have pretty much any e-commerce store, because this applies for most businesses, perhaps not less so with services, but pretty much most product-based businesses who have more than one product can do this.
Titus, I just saw there that the shipping was free for the upsell. I would imagine that's really critical to that working. They're adding it into the existing purchase that you've just had.
Yeah. The free shipping. So, sorry, I don't understand the
Yeah, so
question.
it says, yes, add to my order, we'll ship it out in the same package. So you're not got 2 lots of shipping
That's right.
charges. Yeah.
So you can imagine that this is the page after you've completed the order. So you complete your order, and straight away you're presented with this. And if by clicking one of these green buttons, it will immediately update your order, charge your credit card for the difference. So update your credit card transaction with that difference. And it all comes out together as the same order. It all gets updated into one order. So it's actually a really, really clever system. There's a lot of advanced coding going on with this, which until very recently hasn't been available unless you're a really big time retailer. So there's a lot of advanced stuff going on behind the scenes, but you can get this for very reasonable cost in terms of third-party plugins and developer time. So just moving on to the next one, product bundling. Now, this is, sorry if you're not a big fan, but this is probably perhaps the biggest example of bundling done in terms of cross-selling and cross-selling as well, and that's McDonald's. They've been the absolute masters of this. The whole thing of you go in for your burger, and the classic line is, "Would you like fries with that?" They always go for the extra cross-sell and upsell here. So they always give you, they also branched out into bundle boxes as well, where you buy more and more and more stuff, just to get those extra few dollars in. And those extra few dollars, again, they're far more valuable than the original cost of getting that customer in the first place. So McDonald's appreciates that, and loads of other businesses do as well. Now, bundling is taking that just that step further, where we kind of look at if we look at this from the point of view of the e-commerce owners, the website owners, it's typically the instinct of most people, sellers, whether it's retail or online, to discount items, but that can sometimes lead to an average order value going down instead of up, because obviously if you're discounting things, slashing 20% off, that's money, that's profit you're losing out, and sometimes that doesn't always lead to more sales. Now, rather than doing a 20% discount and making $10, $8, an $8 promotion, what you should probably try and always do is avoid that, because one, it's kind of not great for your brand if you're constantly adding discounts. But a way you can do it is say, no, one product is still $10, but if you take two, then you can offer the bundle of two at a discount. And that's not really perceived as bad for a brand, because big brands do that too. And it's still, that is still increasing your top line, it's increasing your bottom line as well, because you're getting an increased order value. One way of doing bundling, which you may have seen on some websites, is to do quantity breaks or tiered pricing. The idea with this is, if people buy now, they can save. So, if I were in the mindset to buy this flask, that customer, I would already be with the purchase intent on this. The question is, do I want to buy more of that one thing? And sometimes that can be true. You might want to buy friends and family and whatnot. And it's really surprising how many people will go and try and grab a better deal, even if it's just saving a few percent off. The key thing is they're buying it now rather than later, particularly with consumables, items that they might later come back for anyway. It's always great to get that money right now, rather than potentially losing out on customers who might go to your competition. And so all it takes is a little nudge and putting the right messages in the right place. And with this, this is a pretty standard feature and plugin. It comes standard with Zest, but it's very easy to implement on Shopify or WooCommerce or Magento. It's just adding in that little bit of options and variety for buying more and increasing average order value. Now, in terms of tiered pricing, a real smart thing that you'll see on a lot of service-based websites actually offer this is sort of tiered pricing, where you have a whole cascade of different options, sometimes for a service, and you see them for products as well. And the thing with this, which a lot of people don't realize, is there's actually a big psychological study that's gone into the way this tiered pricing works. You'll often see this layout where you've got three pricing tiers, and the middle one is all highlighted, because that's really where where the business wants you to go for. The lower ticket one, the one on the left, will typically be entry level. It will set the scene for things. The middle one will be often just a little bit more. The gap here is actually a fair amount, 79 to 149, but often just a little bit more will get you the premium, more premium position. And then the last one will typically be a lot more. So people will outright dismiss the top one, but the purpose of the top one is not necessarily to make a sale. It is just to make you see how much value you can potentially get with this business. And typically people think it will raise their perception of the lower two tiers. So psychological studies show that the vast majority of people typically will go for the middle tier here. So if you just had the one product on its own, which is the first tier, the $79, often you can convert it into a much, much, much higher sales package by simply laying out your landing pages so that you're offering these different products or different services in this tiered structure. As I said, there have been lots of psychological studies into this, including one of my favorite ones is where they hand out a load of foreign beers to a large group of people, 3 different foreign beers being because they hadn't seen or heard of these beers before. And the key thing with this is that they all look the same. There's no difference in packaging, but they're different price points. There's a cheap one, a medium one, and an expensive one. By far and away, the majority of people will go for the expensive one. But but the thing is, if you take the expensive one away, they'll always end up going for. So if you then reveal the price and say they've got some money to go for and buy a beer on equal grounds, most people actually go for the middle one, even if they don't know what the beers are. They won't go for the cheapest because there's a whole perception thing about it being cheap, and they won't necessarily go for the expensive one because it's, you know, it's, they want to save their pennies. It's typically about, I think the numbers on this study were 79% of people go for the middle option, even though they don't know what the product is, which is interesting. Now, in terms of just moving on, we've got the next key thing we can do is free shipping with a minimum order value. So this is actually also something that can be done pretty easily. And free shipping, you probably heard, free shipping is a massive conversion increaser on a website. So it's really good to promote that anyway. But one thing you may not have thought about is changing the threshold of that free shipping such that not everything's free shipping, but you can increase the threshold of free shipping such that, say, for example, this case where Scrubs Body increased their average order value from $45 to $75, it's purely by making an increase in the lower threshold for when you can get free shipping. So I believe they changed it to free shipping for orders over $70. So the average order value was $45. They changed free shipping to only being over, if you spend over $70. Really, really quickly, they saw massive returns because the average order value went up to $78. Simple thing. I don't think the shipping even cost very much for them. It was only $4 or $5 or something like that, but a massive, massive difference. Now, one key takeaway from this is that, you know, you can do this yourself. You can do this yourselves on your e-commerce website now. And all you really need to do, the best way of doing it is to first work out your average order value. It's a very simple calculation you can run to get that. And then, like what I showed you at the beginning, and then set the free shipping threshold. You can usually do this in the shipping settings to very slightly more than what your average order value is. So for example, if it's $52.50, if your average order value, then you set the free shipping threshold to $60. What you'll typically find is people this will push up very, very swiftly. Again, I think this is a great expert tip because you can do this right now if you've got an e-commerce store. Typically don't need any extra development for that. Now, one thing I would like to just touch on is customer lifetime value. So this is pretty important. Average order value relates to this to a degree, but the bigger picture of acquiring a customer is that the value is more than that first order. It's actually, when you acquire a customer, you might say, okay, well, typically I spend about $50 to acquire a customer, but I'm only getting an average order value of $55. Okay, so it's not really worth it. But what you need to think about in e-commerce, especially since it's so competitive in the advertising space now, is customer lifetime value. And that accounts for all the spending in the subsequent lifetime of your average customer. So if typically if you have a customer, most customers, most e-commerce stores, they'll find that their return customers account for the biggest majority of spend on their site. That is just most e-commerce websites, not all. And you know, so it's very important to try and calculate this, not just the average order value of the first order. And it's a very simple formula for working this out in a simple respect. You know, that lifetime customer value is simply the average order value, or the single sale average, and you times it by the average number of repeat transactions per customer, and then you times it by the average retention period. Now, it's an easy formula with 3 numbers, but it's actually pretty complicated to try and work out what all these 3 numbers are. And there are lots of advanced versions of this formula that get into some pretty in-depth marketing. You don't really need to worry about that so much. You can try and ascertain the customer lifetime value by getting a rough indication of each of these figures. And that can give you a really good ballpark to aim for, especially if you're doing any paid advertising campaigns. That lifetime customer value should really be the amount that you're willing to pay to get an extra customer on your site. Now, in terms of increasing that, the biggest thing to do, the biggest thing we really need to be aiming for is working out ways of effectively marketing to them post-purchase. So email marketing is perhaps the biggest medium for doing that, and perhaps the most underutilized medium as well, because it's such a cost-effective channel. Once you've got people in your funnel, once you've got people ordering, you have that database, you've got their information, you should be remarketing to them. And there's loads of tools available for doing that at the moment, doing that en masse, doing it really easily, and doing it very cheaply as well. So some of the things we can do with these are promotional campaigns. So, just your average campaign that's going on, or email blast. You can do an engagement email workflow series or a customer win back email series flow. So rather than just doing one-off campaigns, a flow or a workflow, or sometimes called a series or a sequence, is basically a series of emails you might send to people. So for example, if you acquire a new customer, obviously they'll have the order confirmation email, but there may be a whole load of other emails you send them, whether that's just to engage with them, to give them more information about your industry, or just to push general promotions. And you can stagger those so that they get those messages maybe a week later, then another one 2 weeks later, and another one every month if you like. But these sequences are very easy to set up, and they're far more cost effective in terms of use of your time, because you send them up once and you can more or less leave them until you need to update it for everyone. And these messages will deliver to all your customers at the right time, which is the time dependent on certain triggers like making a purchase, for example. Now, one of my favorite tools for email marketing is Klaviyo, and that's because we're not a partner with Klaviyo or anything like that, but there are a number of tools like MailChimp and Active Campaign, that sort of thing. Active Campaign is good too. Klaviyo is really good just because it's kind of free, entry level e-commerce system to use, but it's actually really advanced. And straight off the bat, you can cover off a lot of the things which we've covered in this whole seminar, including things like customer lifetime value, doing you can even do abandoned carts and email flows and things like that. It will work all this stuff out for you. It's got some really advanced features in it. It doesn't cost anything to start up with. It costs if you have a big database, and it continues to cost thereafter on a subscription basis. But this is just an example tool where you can really go in and not just email customers about a promotion, but really engage with your customers, engage with them, tell them more about your brand. And it's not just about pushing promotions, it's about delivering them information that's useful. And then occasionally, you can get in that bit of push marketing, that bit of salesmanship at certain points, but only when it's really relevant. Like, for example, if they've come back to your site and visited a certain aspect of your website, a certain category of products, remarket those products to them. This tool and many other tools like it can do the same. Very easy to set up. It does take a bit of fine tuning to get set up right, but it's all stuff that's very doable. It has a massive ROI. Not enough people are doing email marketing at the moment. An example of using email marketing effectively, which is definitely ties in with all of this average order value stuff, is the post-purchase email flow. An example of that is this. So if you've got MailChimp or any email systems, then I'd highly recommend doing something like this. This is just an example, but it's very easy to set up. And that is, you place an order, you get the confirmation email, and then a shipping confirmation is really, really important, because it kind of helps people realize that your order is on its way, you're keeping in touch with them. Really valuable for keeping all these points of contact with them, points of communication with them at every stage of the journey, just because it makes them feel more reliable. It's exposing your brand to them more. And then, shipment check-in, typically when a parcel's arrived there, you want to let them know about it. Again, it's another contact point. Then after, maybe a few days after they've received their parcel or a week after, send them a review request. This gives you the benefit of seeing, that they've given you a good review on their site, whether it's on a Google review or just an internal review. You can use that for making later decisions. For example, sending them another discount or a discount or follow-up email afterwards. And that can be with a coupon or something a bit like this. And it, again, we've just warmed them all up through all these stages. And then finally, we're sending them another bit of push marketing to get them to buy. But it doesn't necessarily seem so much like a bit of push marketing because you've just stayed in contact with them with nice friendly messages throughout this journey. And people are far more responsive when they get this bit of push marketing at the end with a discount to reorder. In addition to that, one nice little nugget, which again, most people, 99% of businesses don't do, is they don't think about this, which is that the email which gets the most attention, which 99% plus of people will open, is the order confirmation email. Whenever people place an order, they always want to check just to make sure it went through. They'll check their email for that. They will look at that. Whilst most emails don't really get a look, and a lot of them get archived before they're even opened, this one always gets opened. And you can really easily take advantage of that by, at this peak point of trust. They've just made a purchase from you. They just decided to give you their money. So you can pretty much be assured that they trust you to some extent. You can use that real estate, that actual email, to give them another offer straight off the bat. Similar to the post-purchase upsells. You can just do this in an email. It doesn't require anything fancy. All you need to do is just go into that email and just add in a bit of text saying, hey, why don't you try out our new promotion? Our new product, we got it on promotion, especially for customers like you, or whatever you want to do with your messaging there. But really what you want to do is put an irresistible offer there, right there, so that straight away you can get them to re-engage or at least share it with a friend. Very easy to do. Again, it's all about maximizing your average order value. Now, we're pretty much running out of time, but I'm just about to get to my last little thing I want to talk about. Which is loyalty programs. Now, this can become a very big and complicated thing with some sites, but often it's overdone. The key to doing loyalty programs is keeping it simple, and it can work wonders when you get it right. And the reason being is we've just talked about retaining customers and keeping them engaged. If you've got a database of people, a few things stay better retaining them than loyalty programs, because there's always a risk of people going off to other brands all the time. But a loyalty program means that they're probably getting points with you and they're much more invested in you already, whether they're your brand evangelist or not. If they have points with you or they've got some money invested with you in one way or another, they're far, far, far more likely to make the decision to go with you again the next time they purchase than anyone else. So this little thing, even if it means you can make a little bit of a loss in setting up a loyalty program, can really pay massive dividends because, as I say, most purchases from e-commerce websites are typically from repeat customers, even though it's only a small proportion of those customers that do come back for repeat business. They do spend the most. So this promotes that. It also promotes sharing of that information and promotes brand evangelists too. So, and that's my last little that's my last little tip and bit of advice on upsells and customer lifetime value.
Awesome, Titus. Thank you. I just had a question. I mean, to me, this is all really exciting stuff because to me, it's stuff that you can control yourself, as a business owner. I was just wondering, what would you recommend doing first? It seems like there's a large amount of things that you could probably do there.
Yeah, there are definitely a lot of things to do, but it just gives you an idea about how many how many opportunities there are. I'd recommend doing as many as you can, but those little tips I gave in there, like for about the working out your average order value, you need to know your numbers first, and then just simply put the free shipping threshold up a bit over that. If it's already over that, then perhaps don't concern yourself with that too much. But maybe one thing you should definitely try is working on those the email marketing side of things. And most of you, if you've got an e-commerce business, you will have email marketing facilities, whether that's MailChimp or your integrated Zest email. You'll have the abilities there, but most people just don't use it. So go in and make some emails. And I don't mean just make an email blast and just shout to everyone, hey, we got this big promotion, hoo-ha. Make a campaign or workflow, make an automated trigger for it. That way you're doing one piece of work and it's set up to make returns for you for the next few years. That's one thing you can go away and do.
Right, thank you. What about, I know sometimes business owners get a little concerned that they're being too pushy with the cross-sells, upsells, all this kind of email promotions. So kind of where do you find that balance there?
Well, I think I've kind of covered that a little bit in this presentation, which is that, yeah, you're absolutely right. You don't want to come across as too pushy, and you do need a balance. And it's about how you position your language at any stage when you offer anything. But the real thing is not being afraid to offer things. It is about timing of offering those. So, for example, if you're doing an email workflow, then always give them value. Give your customers value for free. Just give them value. Give them information about this widget that they just bought. Give them information about the industry. Share stuff with them. Be friendly. And then, once you've hit them a few times with these just general bits of value information, then give them an offer. And that offer will often be, if it's done right, if it's segmented right, it will be something that's beneficial to them anyway. So it won't even feel like push marketing by the time it's got to that point. And it's the same on your website. Just don't interrupt the user journey. Just position it so that it's sort of a post-purchase upsell. That's the best thing to do. Or put the messaging and the promotions in the right place on your website.
Right. Thank you, Titus. I think that's about all we've got time for. I'm just going to jump onto a bit of an overview. So COVID-19 has become less prominent in the news as we as a country have moved forward. Even though we have new cases, they're being held at the border and we're focused more on recovery. What we know is that buying behaviours have changed and there is an opportunity to get online and take advantage of these changing buying behaviours. Our prediction is those businesses that work out ways to adapt their business to be operating online and to promoting it online will be more successful. And our recommendation is just to make a start with promoting and marketing your business online now. And the things that Titus has shared today are some really powerful tools and tips, but also not necessarily that hard to do with present online technology. Just wanted to say that Zeald has helped over 15,000 businesses transform digitally over the last 20 years. We do provide a free strategy or website audit session with every inquiry that we get, and we have a team of experienced digital business strategists here to help. Zeald also launched our Get Ecommerce movement to help Kiwi businesses get online as soon as possible. So you can go to zeald.com for more information about how to get a free e-commerce website. After this, we'll be sending out an email asking for your feedback, and please let us know your feedback, especially if you have any suggested topics that you would like to hear about that might help you run your business online. We are running these seminars, webinars every week with tips and tricks on how to adapt and evolve in these challenging times. Our next webinar is on the 8th of July at 2 p.m. and it is entitled How to Promote Locally. So this is going to be a really important webinar for businesses who market mostly to their local suburbs. It will help to start engaging and selling to potential customers in your area, learn expert ways to promote promote your products and services to your local community. So please share this next webinar next week with those that you think might be able to make use of it. I want to give a very special thanks to Titus. We really appreciate your valuable insights and your time for being with us today. Thank you. If you missed part of the webinar or would like to see it again, we'll be posting it on our YouTube channel and also on our webinar landing page on our site, zeald.com. And please share those links with anyone that you might think could use them. And we wish you all the best and have a great day.